Hey guys, R4GE VipeRzZ here, and today I'm going to show you how you can replace the thermal paste on the GTX 1080 Ti MSI Gaming X. So if we turn the card over, as you can see we have all these screws on the back. So we have these four main screws here that are holding the heatsink onto the actual GPU die. And then we have the rest of the screws that are holding the backplate and the whole card together. So what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to remove these four screws. And we're going to need to remove the rest of these screws here. So we're going to start off by removing the GPU screws. So we're going to come to the screws here and we're going to remove them in a cross pattern. So we're going to gradually unscrew them a bit at a time in a cross pattern. Right, so now we've got the four GPU screws out of here, 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 and here. We can now take out the rest of these screws. Right, so now I've taken the screws out of here, 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 and here. We can now make sure that all the screws are out, and then just take the backplate off. So now I've got the backplate off, there is now nothing holding the heatsink on, and there are just a few plugs that we're going to need to unplug. So on the top we have one plug here. So as you can see down here, there is one plug. And then on the bottom there are two plugs down here at this end. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the card on its side like so, and then we're just going to gently pull it away very carefully, making sure that we don't pull on the cables. So now we've pulled it away a bit, we can now get in to unplug the top plug. So now we've unplugged the top one, we can now put the graphics card down like so, and then we can gently lift it open like that. And then we can unplug these two plugs down here. So we've unplugged the plugs out of here, here, and here. So now we've done that, we can now put the graphics card to one side. And we can first clean off the thermal paste on the heatsink. So we're just going to get some paper towel, and we're going to get some rubbing alcohol. And we're going to put the rubbing alcohol onto the paper towel, and we're going to start cleaning the thermal paste off. Right, so now I've cleaned the thermal paste off the heatsink, we can now get our graphics card, and we can now clean the thermal paste off the GPU. So just like we did with the heatsink, we're just going to get some paper towel and some rubbing alcohol, and we're just going to clean the GPU off. Right, so now I've gotten the thermal paste off the GPU, we can now apply some more. Now it doesn't matter if there is thermal paste around the GPU die, as long as the thermal paste you're using isn't electrically conductive, then it shouldn't cause any problems. And if you do try to clean it away from the edge, then it could end up pulling some of these small components off. Right, so I'm going to get my thermal paste and I'm going to apply it in a cross pattern. So I'm going to put it on like so. And with a GPU, it's always better to have more thermal paste on than not enough, as having too much isn't going to damage it as long as the thermal paste isn't electrically conductive, but not having enough will damage it. Right, so now I put the thermal paste on the GPU, we can now start putting the graphics card back together. Right, so now we're going to get our heatsink and we're going to roughly place it back onto the graphics card, trying to line it up with the screw holes. And then we can hold the graphics card at the sides and have a check from the top. So now we're just going to lift the heatsink up a little again, just so we can plug the plugs back in. Right, so now we've got the top plug plugged back in, and we've got the bottom plugs plugged back in. So these two here, we can now start putting the screws back in the card. So if we get the card and we turn it over, and then we just move the graphics card gently so that all the holes line up. And now we've made sure all our holes are lining up, we can now put the backplate back on. And we're then going to put the GPU screws back in. So we're going to tighten them up in a cross pattern just like we unscrewed them. So I'll start by tightening this one up a little. And then I'll get my next one and I'll tighten that one up a little. And then I'll get my third one and I'll tighten that one up a little. And then I'll get my fourth one and I'll tighten that up a little. And then we're just going to go around in a cross pattern slowly tightening up the GPU screws. Now it's important when you're tightening up the GPU screws that you stop as soon as it gets difficult to turn, as if you try to force it then you could end up snapping the screws. So once you feel that a screw doesn't turn anymore, don't force it. So now we have the 4 GPU screws screwed back in, we can now put the backplate screws back in. So we're just going to screw them in lightly, so only screw them in a little just until we've got all the screws back in. And now we've got all the back plate screws back in, we're now going to tighten them down. And again, just like with the GPU screws, as soon as they stop turning, don't try and force them as you could end up snapping them. Right, so now we put the screws back in all of these holes. Our card should now be together. And just make sure that you have plugged in all of the plugs. And there you go, we have now replaced the thermal paste on a GTX 1080 Ti MSI Gaming X. So guys, if you liked the video, don't forget the like button. If you dislike to hit the dislike button. Subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you another time. Bye.